Boom, clear my throat. We are back. It is I, Zack. Zacky, wacky doo. Ladies and gentlemen, your neighborhood friendly coach, trainer, promoter, 43-year-old professional wrestler, Zack Primetime Reeb. Joined alongside my podcast partner, the 7-foot wrecking ball, Paul Isadora, for another episode of Going Over Pod. Pod. Paul, what is up today?
Oh, not much, man. Just another episode. And I feel like the last episode I forgot to say like, subscribe, etc. Hit the bell icon so you're the first to get notified of all the new podcasts coming out. But yeah, man, geez, I'm just chilling here, thinking about we got by the time this airs, we're already going to have day one of session 2 of training this year at the Reno Wrestle Factory. So looking forward to that. Getting some new blood in there, and you always hope that when you get the new students in there, that that it's going to be a kick in the ass for the other students that maybe are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? We've talked so much about the the people that you have to call on the phone, or you have to remind, or bother, I guess, about coming to class. Like 100% of the time, those guys do not make it, right? So I'm just hoping the new round of class here is going to be a reminder that, hey, this is an opportunity that you just don't pass over and you take advantage of. And we've talked about cutting out days, and you're offering these guys too much and things like that. So we might have to cut out a day and see how that goes. But I'm excited to see what the new class brings. So
Some noobs, huh? Some noobs strolling in for a little bit of modernized hazing. Ha
that's it,
ha
man.
ha. I hid your Skittle sour gummy candy underneath the ring. You don't know where it's at. Yeah, well, no doubt about that shit. 100%. And these guys that haven't been showing up or at any place you're at, then I guess they're going to be going through that 3-month a beginner's course. Yes, yet one more time. We talked about, you had a guy, Jojo. I love Jojo. You talked about how he is always there. He's at every single one. So you move him along. He becomes the leader of the line. He becomes the guy that after these guys have to go through all that same shit that they missed because they missed it. I had to talk with the guys today, and I'm like, man, I'm asking you to do something simple. Some guys have been around for a very long time. And in this school process, that's the last thing we want. We don't want you there for 2 to 3 years. Not at all, whether you're paying or not. If you're there for 2 or 3 years, if you're there past the 288 hour or the 12-month program that we have put out there for you, meaning that if you're there still trying to learn these basic warm-up drills, work on some other things that you haven't figured out yet, and you're not out there trucking along, getting some bookings, you are doing no good to the wrestling program that we are trying to provide. Very exciting for you. I think we got one. Extreme Measures is on Saturday, and then the new class is supposed to be the following day on Sunday. We shall see how that goes. It doesn't hurt me either way because we're going to keep on trucking, man. I seem to get these athletes and different students in spurts, so they just all end up adding together. I got to make a few changes myself. So what's on your mind today? What's on your mind?
Oh, dude, there's so many things on my mind, but I think the one that's probably on the tip is right. I think about the different people, and they're posting their matches, or they're saying how great their match was, or whatever it is, and I think back, like, when you're starting at a promotion, or even now, man, when you go to a promotion and you look around and you go, I'm the best guy here, or something along those lines. When you look around and you go, you know what? I've been in locker rooms where the talent level is way up here, right? There's people pushing the envelope, pushing me to get better. Um, I just wonder, do people still do that? Do they look around the locker room and go, you know what? We need to elevate what's going on here. Because I remember back in the day, Ugly made that comment, right? That SPW, when me and Adam and Luster and Malachi, Corey, Choopy, all those people were there, that it was one of those times where you had to look around and you go, fuck, man, I got to up my game because these guys are pushing the envelope, right? These guys are making us look bad if we're not working hard to get better. So I just wonder if that's what's going on. You know, like I look at different promotions and I go, you know, you got some talent there, but you know, what are you doing to push those guys further? How are you getting those guys better? And are the guys that are lower and you know not as good? Are they pushing themselves to get better? Are they pushing themselves to get to the level of the top guy? Right? Because you've heard so many times if your goal isn't to become the champion, then what are you doing there? You know, and I think there's definitely a part of me that understands there's the weekend warriors, right? They just want to come and they just want to wrestle on the weekends. Have no interest of going any further. And I think in some senses that's a detriment to your program, you know, because you have some guys that they don't want to be the top guy on the card. So as a result, they just don't work that hard, right? So they don't work that hard, and then the rest of your card, they don't have to work as hard to be the best guy on the card. So, thoughts on that, man? What do you think? I mean, obviously, you're always trying to uh, be the best guy on your show, right? And sometimes it's a struggle because you surround yourself with other talented guys, right? Younger guys, more in shape guys, more athletic guys, where it makes you go, well, fuck, man, if I want to stay at the top of this game, then I need to keep up with some of these younger, more athletic, you know, stronger guys, right? So what do you think about that? Like surrounding yourself with better guys versus, you know, you start letting your product slip a little bit.
Well, they got a saying, and it says iron sharpens iron. So you do want to surround yourself around better guys. And it's not just about wrestling. We get it. You love it. You want to do this thing, especially when you start out. You want to do this just physically as you don't care where you go. If you travel, you go to a different place, a different state. You know, sometimes guys slip in and they land in a different country. Sometimes they cross the border into Mexico. Sometimes they get hooked up with the right company, like a West Coast Pro, and they get room and board and flight, and they're off on their way to a Japan to work over there, which is a really cool experience. But some of these guys, you got to realize. I was talking to someone the other day, and I forgot who I was talking to, but they asked me, "What are your best matches?" And I said, "Well, I always go back and I say Will Roberts." And they say, "Oh, those matches with the real deal Will Roberts, the cage, that the match you guys had for the belt." I said, "Yeah, I like those matches because Will was coming up and he was becoming a big baby face, right? And I finally, for the first time in my career in my own company, I got to be the aggressive villain, heel, rule breaker. And they say, what recently, I've said it many times, you know, from Off the Chain last October to your show, this last one, to a few other times, I said, Dickie is, I love my best matches have been with Dickie. And oddly enough, right, I'm a bad guy. I'm a more aggressive type heel character when I'm doing these matches with him. And why those matches are my favorite and why they're so good is because I know how to run the match. I know how to call it. I know what these guys do. I know where to place it. I know when to place it. And my better matches are with these guys because I'm the bad guy and I'm calling the action. I'm setting the pace. I'm calling the whole thing. Now, as a baby face, it's good because you got to listen. And as you get more experienced as a baby face, you get to turn and you go, okay, I know where to be for that heel. Even if he's inexperienced, I know how to set him up. I know where to be. I know what to do. I even know what to call for him. So I've learned to wrestle all these years as a heel by being the baby face and gaining that experience. And one thing is, back in the day, we actually, when we debuted, we had to get the shit beat out of us. And I always go back to saying that. I had to get the shit beat out of me. Maybe you not so much because of your size, but I had to get the shit beat out of me. I didn't get paid anything. I went on long trips. Sometimes I went to Lompoc to work for Billy Blade, 8 hours one way, to have my coach kick the shit out of me. And then 7 minutes, turn around, drive home. I might have got an arm drag. I might have bounced up the ropes and done something flippy. And then he smoked me with the clothesline, sky high, something like that. But nowadays, the young guys are, and I feel like in a way I made a mistake with Rayshawn Prince by making him a heel before I showed him how to wrestle as a babyface. Because even when you tried to switch him over to he didn't learn that other way to wrestle. So he didn't learn in the sympathy and the selling. He didn't get what he was trying to listen for with the crowd. So, one thing that's always drilled in my head, back in the day, we had to earn the right to be the bad guy, the villain. We either had to learn how to be really good at it, or we had to take a shit ton of ass whoopings just so that we could understand how to run the match, how to call it, how to pace that thing out. So what I'm seeing nowadays, like we've talked about, over and over and over again, is I'm seeing a lot of talent that's missing that opportunity. They're starting out with characters. They're starting out with good flashy gear with their name on it. They're already involved in storylines, and it's like, no, man, just send them out there, have them get their ass kicked, because we talked about it. Here's the thing. I got this guy, let's just say Surza, and let's say he's a baby. And then I got this guy, let's just say Travis Alexander. Baby heel. I don't know what I'm doing with these guys yet, but I got 6 to 8 new guys that are just getting on the show, and no one knows who the fuck these guys are. So what do I do as the promoter? For a couple months, I feed some new guys to Travis, and I feed some new guys to Surza, and those guys start to build some victories. Those guys start to get their moves over and who they are and their character, and get on a little winning streak in front of the crowd. And the new guys, they get out there and get the experience of getting beat up while these guys are calling the action. And it's helping the other guys too. And then eventually, after a few months, I got a baby face, Surza, and a heel, Travis, and they've got some steam behind them. So I got a matchup between a baby and a heel, what do I need next? Do I need the baby to be strong for a heel I got up here, or do I need the heel to be strong for a baby that I got over here? So the difference between us and them is we just didn't start out winning. We didn't just start out as heels trying to run the match when we've only been around for a year or two, because you're not going to be able to pull that off. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're 100% right about having to earn the right to be the heel, right? To be the guy that's calling the match. But I think we've talked about it so many times about how the matches are so much more choreographed now. So these guys, they don't learn how to be, babyface or heel. Um, because we have a lot of guys that they're wrestling each other and they're from the same school, right? I see that so often, and it's like I don't feel like that's giving people experience, the right experience at least. It's you're putting two guys that are learning how to be pro wrestlers in the ring together. And I mentioned this a couple episodes ago about my thought process is always like, who's gonna kind of take over this match if something starts going to shit? Who's gonna kind of reel it back in and get us back on track? That's what I'm worried about. And I think that there's so many, and I was just on a podcast just the other day, And it's people just, they're asking me questions about how to run their promotion, and I'm just like, I almost want to call you up and go, hey man, you got to fucking jump in on this, because they're asking some questions that I feel like you're a little bit more equipped to answer, being, running for so much longer. But it's just, I'm saying, like, I feel like you're seeing too much of the 50-50 stuff, right? Like, I don't know how many times you've set me a match and I've gone, who's the baby face and who's the heel? Because there's not one guy beating the shit out of the other guy, and one guy getting sympathy from the crowd and fighting back and getting some sort of comeback. There's none of that. There's, you give me 3 moves, I'll give you 3 moves, right? We're not, nobody's gaining the advantage. So there's no, you're not building sympathy for a baby face. You're just out there doing moves. And I think that's definitely comes from, you're putting guys in the ring together that are training together. You're not switching them up and going, hey, I've got a couple students, I'll put them in there with you, and you can run them through some matches and they can learn from you, and vice versa. Hey, I've got some students, I'll put them in there with you, and I can teach them some stuff, right? So I think I feel like that's such a lost art right now. We're having, I don't remember how many times I would work with somebody who was way better than me, right? That you're trying to learn how things are done, and you're trying to sit in the locker room and you're trying to listen to the way that people are talking to each other when they're talking about their match, right? I would just love to just be sitting in there and listening to someone that I go, wow, this dude is, the top of the card. And how many times have we talked about that we go, nobody's interested in finding out what the guy at the top of the card is doing to get to the top of the card, right? That's, for some reason, that's a missing step. And I think it's just because so many places are just, like you said, you come in the door and you've already got a gimmick picked out, and you already know what you're going to be doing. And it's like, okay, so you've been training for 3 or 4 months, and now you've already got a character, right? So you just come right in and you've got this character that you're portraying already, rather than being the bland, generic wrestler coming out there and just working matches. And I think I've mentioned this to you before as well, how frustrating it is where you have a guy that's very new to the business, and then you have a guy that's been in 10 plus years, and they wrestle a match and it's very back and forth, right? The brand new guy is getting a lot of offense on the experienced guy. And it's like, it doesn't make sense to me, because if you have that in UFC, you have a guy that's having his first fight and you have a guy that's 10 years in. The guy with a lot more experience is probably going to control that fight, unless you got some sort of prodigy, right? It's the same thing we're talking about right now. Like, you have to work your way up to be a competitor in your weight division in UFC. So we're not doing the same type of things. And I know what people are going to say. People are going to say, this isn't real, right? This is pro wrestling. This is just it doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to look real and all this stuff. But you know, uh, like the old fan said in the crowd, it's still real to me, damn it. Like, it's just, for me, I want it to be that wrestling that I watched as a kid and what made me fall in love with pro wrestling. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what I think about that. So there's just bad leaders. And it's not, and we're not just talking about NorCal wrestling. I'm talking about NorCal. I'm talking about SoCal. I'm talking about the Nevada scene. I'm talking about all over. I'm talking about NXT. That shit is choreographed to the bone. I have a hard time sometimes watching their promos because they're so fake and scripted. And I saw one the other day, and the girls were all in the locker room, and then two of the girls in a tag team started arguing in front of the Rock's daughter. And the other girls, there was like 15 of them, I'm pretty sure they were told to continue a conversation while this argument was going on. So they're like, I'm like, man, this is some phony, cheesy ass acting. It's bad in WWE. It's bad in AEW. And in AEW, I saw a picture the other day, like a montage poster of like 40 people. And the guy said, this is the injured roster right here. These are the talent that's injured in AEW. And if they started a promotion right now, it was a news guy. He said, if they started a promotion right now with all the injured wrestlers in AEW, their talent roster would be better than the WWE's. And it's no, it wouldn't, because they're injured. They're injured. There's 40 of them injured because they're going out there in these choreographed matches doing all this unnecessary stuff, trying to get a pop from the crowd because they have no other way to get the pop from the crowd. By the time I told you on one of these podcasts, I got mad because they were doing the Canadian Destroyer fucking whatever back and forth. It was like Penta and Cornette calls them pockets, Orange Cassidy. And then all of a sudden I saw a moment where Orange Cassidy had sold right and they're like stretchered him out. And I was pissed. I'm like, oh, all of a sudden, huh? All of a sudden you want to sell right. Now I don't care you're selling the proper way. I'm not buying it because you haven't done it for 3 years. So why do I give a shit that you're going to try to do it now? And we run into that problem where that stuff doesn't get over. And it's harder for guys to get over. So it's bad leadership. And it starts at the helm with the promoter, the trainer, whatever. But what I mean by bad leadership is if I am in control and you're supposed to be listening to me, shut the fuck up and don't do. If I shoot you off the rope and deliver a knee into your gut, don't go selling on your own out there because you don't know what's next. Not just you don't know what's next, like you don't know what to fucking do next. So just stay here close to me and sell, and I will pick you back up and I will tell you what we're going to do next. I will put you into our next place and I will comfortably and safely lead you to the next step. And I refer to it like this because imagine a highway and a main road, 4 stoplights are going like this. You're on your bike, whether you got your helmet or not. If you look across over there and that crosswalk doesn't say walk and you just hop on your bike or run across the road, what's going to happen to you? You're going to get fucking blasted, T-boned, sideswiped by a car doing anywhere from 60 to maybe even 100 miles per hour going down the road. You're either going to die or you're going to be injured. So it's the same thing. If you're the leader and you're a guy in there learning from the leader, use that analogy. Stop. Do not go until I give you the green light. And if I'm a good leader, I will give you the green light. I don't need to sit in that locker room and tell you everything we're going to do because we talk about it all the time. I don't know what this unorthodox, unpredictable crowd is going to do tonight. I don't know why they're here. It's like, you ever gone to a midget wrestling show? Little people, I guess is what you're supposed to say, but a midget wrestling show and tried to promote for a wrestling show. Those guys don't give a shit about professional wrestling. They're there to get drunk and laugh at the little people. You know what I mean? Ha, ha, ha. Look at him climb the ropes. That's what they're there for. So you have to gauge what's going on out here. We have to start thinking and going, okay, I don't have to do all this stuff because it might not be required to do. So we have to treat this stuff like a stoplight. I hit you with something. Right now we're stopped. The caution light's on. Now when I'm ready and they're ready, I'll get you up. And when the light's ready and it turns green, then we'll go. We will proceed with caution. And we need to start talking more because we're not talking. And we need to be communicating with the referee. Shit, last time I wrestled Dickie, I communicated 2 or 3 spots through Cody because he was around. And we were separated a good distance where if I would have talked to him, it would have been obvious. So when he checked on me, I transferred a message over to him to say, hey, tell him to hip toss me. So when he walked back over to him, he said, hey, he's coming out. He's going to hip toss him. It's easy communication. And the difference, which is really happening, which I see with the choreographing is if you can't call it out there, whether it's in the roll up or just while you're tussling around, if you can't call it in the ring so we can't see it, don't do it. That's what your finish is for. That is what your finish is for. What's the two most important things in professional wrestling? Three, actually. I'll throw three out there. Number one, listening to your audience. Write it down, guys. Listening to your audience. That's first step. First of three steps to becoming a famous. Step two, sell. You're going to hear it over and over again. Sell. And number three, snap bump. And I say that because why is that snap bump so important? Do you know why that snap bump's so important? We talk about it all the time. I'm not trying to put you on the spot either.
Well, no. I know that, you talk about the importance of, regardless of where you train, the snap bump is going to be the same, right? You're going to take a snap bump the same regardless of where you train. There's nothing different about that. There's not going to be well, it's going to be different at this school than my school or anything like that. You're going to teach it exactly the same. And I feel like that's going to be the in your comeback, regardless, your hot tag or your comeback.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Thank you. One more time. Oh, thank you, Big Paul. Choking down on that chicken. Yes, listening to your audience. It's so important it's important from the time you walk out the curtain to the time you leave the curtain. Selling, it's important from the time you walk out the curtain, from the time you leave the curtain. And the most important part of the match is the comeback, which the comeback is part of your finish. So your finish, if you fuck up your snap bumps, if you fuck up your comeback when the crowd's supposed to be up, guess what happens if you don't get up fast enough on your bumping feed?
The crowd's gonna.
Yeah, I'm talking to you. We don't got live listeners.
Yeah. The crowd is gonna fucking.
They're gonna go down.
Right.
They're gonna go down. And if they go down, then you're finished. It don't even matter if you pull your finish off flawlessly. Your last few, your near fall is not going to get any reaction. The pinfall is not going to get any reaction. Nothing is going to get a reaction because you blew the bump and feed. The bump and feed is the hot tag. We're coming back hot. This is, if you are a bad guy, a heel, you need to bump and feed and keep getting up and elevating everything to get the baby face over at this point. Because guess what the baby face did for you? He sold and got you over so you could build your heat, and which in turn gave him sympathy for his comeback. So if I'm telling people, yeah, go to the gym, right? Go to the gym, obviously. Eat right. Roland Alexander, he preached that in Beyond the Mat the other day. I was watching that the other day, eat right. Watch your Jack in the Box and your Burger Kings and your McDonald's. Watch your labels, your nutritional facts. Thanks. Love you to death, RIP. But yeah, so eat right, go to the gym, exercise, stay healthy, buy good gear, all that stuff they tell you. The most important part is getting over, they say. Getting over, because we're going over, right? So, but it all stems from these three things. Number one, ear for the audience. You can do it in your promo. You can do it on your entrance. You can do it in the shine, in the heat of the cutoff, the comeback, the finish. Everything that when you leave the fucking ring, everything that you do is all about listening to that audience. Even if you got your shit choreographed, still listen to the audience. Number two, sell. We always got to sell, because if we're not selling good, we can't build no sympathy. We can't get no heat to build sympathy. And number three, it's the most important thing is that snap bump, the bump and feed. Because if we're not bumping and feeding right at the right times, whether it's a hot tag in a tag match, 6-man, 8-man, 10-man, whatever the fuck it is, if we're not bumping and feeding right, that's the most important part going into the finish. Our finish, we're going to shit on our finish. So we have to do that right. So, I mean, those are things that those are the three things I would tell people to actually work on when they're doing this stuff. And it's pretty simple stuff, man. It deals with what? Ears. It deals with eyes. and it deals with a little bit of physical activity, man. So, what is your tell me a time that have you ever had to bump and feed in a match?
I would say it might be. I wouldn't necessarily like bump and feed, like snap bump and feed, but I think like maybe in a tag match, it might be. Um, I would always call it stagger cell, right? Somebody hits you with something that kind of knocks you off balance or whatever, where I'm going to come in and do something else. So I don't think necessarily. Maybe some of the bigger guys around, the Malachis and Luster and guys like that, maybe bump and feed a little bit, but I would say probably not that much. Stagger cell, I think, leading into one big bump. I think probably early on, I think I told you about this. Like early on, I definitely struggle with that. So probably early on, I probably, bump and feed a little bit more for guys I shouldn't have. So yeah, but not recently for sure.
It's so dopey, man. I see so many big guys, and even not even I'm talking guys in Europe, bad news, whatever size, but just guys that are bigger. If they miss something, it's always like, oh, I missed my momentum, come back. Or if they're in the corner, oh, you're not home. What were you going to do to that guy anyways? You know what I mean? You're running all the way across the ring. What were you going to do to him? So one thing I've been working with my guys on is like, let's just say we tilt to whirl you around and you land right here next to us on your feet. I go for a clothesline and miss you. I'm trying to grab you and you start backpedaling and I'm coming after you and then you move out of the way in the corner and I hit the corner. Like baiting somebody, baiting a bigger guy. Like if a big guy missed something, whatever, he needs to be trying to grab back a hold of the little guy. And because he's doing that, it's a panic. You know what I mean? Oh, I missed that clothesline. Oh, he's still right there. I grabbed him, but he moved out of the way. He's backpedaling. He's got me on the run. We're too far apart, is what I'm trying to get at. Is like we should always be an arm length away so we can touch each other, and we're always too far apart from each other. So when we create so much separation and distance, the timing's gone. Like people talk about the timing. The timing's, if I whip you into that corner and you bounce up and go, or just push off the ropes or bounce up and go up and over me, if I push you in that corner and I'm running from halfway across the ring or 3/4 across the ring, I'm not going to be able to judge when you go over me. So it's going to look like I'm waiting and ducking under you. But if I whip you in close, and I take 3/4 of the ring and then I charge and it's only 1 or 2 steps, then I can control my timing a lot better. So our timing is better the closer we are to each other. The further we get from each other, the worse the timing is. And like what I meant by that dopey stuff is I watched Braun Strowman wrestle one night and I was just crying laughing. I couldn't stop because like the dude's over there by the pole and he comes like choo-choo training around the ring and runs at the guy by the pole, and the guy just moves out of the way and Braun Strowman hits the post. And now the guy's in the guardrail, so Braun like, ugh. And then he backs up and he charges at him at the guardrail, and the guy moves again and he splatters into the guardrail. And I'm like, I get why you're doing it, but Braun Strowman looks like a fucking moron. Like, why do you keep running at this guy full speed when he's standing in front of something that if he moves is gonna fuck you up? Like, dude, you're a strong man. Get a hold of this guy and throw him into that shit. Like, why are you choo-choo train running at this guy? Why are you backing up and creating 20 feet of distance to run at him so he can move and you can hit the post and you can sell for him? I get it. But the lack of creativity, especially wrestling a big guy, is just like, I bet I know what this guy's gonna do. So we got to be more creative in this stuff, man.
Yeah,
100%.
and I think jumping back to you were talking about the WWE stuff and how phony it looks, and I remember the Ballards talking about how they watched multiple tag matches and they all had the same exact elements. Like we're in a production line and we're going, okay, here's This is how a hot tag goes in a tag match. Here's how a comeback comes in whatever. I talk about, like, just, obviously we're early in and we're talking about chain wrestling stuff, and I said, man, I would like everyone to have their own kind of version of the way that they're reversing. And I always use the same example, which is two guys that trained at the same school. The trainer was showing them some unique reversals, and then the guys are wrestling each other. I talked about that earlier in this episode, how I dislike that, because it's like, now you're just doing the stuff that you've practiced this week. Now you're replicating drills you've done this week, and both of you guys were doing the same drills. So now your tendency is to do the same reversals or whatever. And then you have a unique, well, I figure, unique, because I don't have a whole lot of chain wrestling stuff in my repertoire, because it wasn't something that I used. So, guys are using the same reversal on each other. And it's like, okay, well, now it's not unique anymore, because obviously both of these guys, the babyface and the heel, they both know the exact same reversal. Now it doesn't look unique anymore, and I think that that's another downfall of the wrestling against guys that you're training with. Instead of getting that matchup with somebody else, right? And I understand. I always tell people, like, go work out a promotion where you're gonna work with someone who's better, and you're gonna get better. And we talked about that earlier here as well. Like, the teaching aspect of showing someone how to do something, I think in turn helps you get better yourself, because of how you're explaining your psychology on how to do something, and you're like, does that make sense the way I'm explaining it? Does it make sense now to the person that you're teaching? And then also you look at yourself in the mirror and go, does what I'm saying to this person actually make sense also? Like, I know that you talk about, headlock takeover and snapmare and different things like that, and how that's just an extension of some of the progression drills that you're doing. And it was like, I don't want to say it was a mind blower for me, but it was something I hadn't heard before. Oh, you're doing this because of this. I like to explain stuff like that as well, because I don't want it to be like you're just doing a drill. We're doing something that's a part of a wrestling match, and that's why we're doing it like this. Whatever we're doing, it's not just because we're doing it because it's a drill. We're doing it because it is a part of a wrestling match that you would realistically do. So
Mm-hmm.
and I love those type of drills that emulate something that's going to actually happen in a wrestling match, rather than things that are not going to make sense if you put them together.
Well, here's where the drill becomes a stupid drill. It becomes a stupid drill when you put two guys, inexperienced guys, in the drill to do it with each other. If you take, okay, I got these experienced people and I'm going to put them on this side, and I got the inexperienced people and I'm going to put them on this side, then your drill then doesn't become a drill, because the experienced people are showing the inexperienced people, they're leading them through it. So they're telling them, hey, sell. When it becomes when the drill is pointless to me is when you take two guys that aren't ready to run the drill as a leader, and they're just trying to do exactly what you showed them how to do. So they're just like, okay, it's almost like choreographing, because they're like, okay, we've memorized what he did in the drill, and now we're just going to do that. And they don't realize that I'm looking at them, checking the time on it. I'm like, all right, well, that took you 45 seconds. It should have taken you 3. You should have got about 3 minutes out of this thing. You know what I mean? But if you get somebody in there who's an experienced leader, so putting inexperienced guys in the ring with inexperienced guys, even at training is a bad idea. And the format that people use is, they're like, all right, I got a beginner's class with all beginners. Okay, cool. They should be beginners. Some people are going to pick it up quicker, but they should be beginners for 2-3 months, whatever that is, right? And then after that, if you're going to move them on, they know how to do their warm-ups. They know how to do their progressions. You taught them how to lock up and do all this stuff. So now these guys, they say they've moved into advanced beginner, right? Oh, now I'm a semi-pro. But if you break that stuff down, the beginning class is like, this dude doesn't know shit. So you have to show him how to walk. You have to show him how to get in the ring properly. You have to show, you're basically teaching a guy how to crawl, and then he's going to start taking his first steps. And then once he starts taking consistent baby steps and he gets through this stuff, then you go, okay, now technically I'm going to move you up and we're going to show you how to do this stuff. But we're going to show you how to do this stuff, taking all this stuff from someone who's been doing it for a while. So you are integrating these guys. I got that first couple, 2-3 months, you are integrating these guys in with the guys with experience. And then now they're going to take off. So when you go, oh, I got a beginner's class and an advanced beginners and a semi-pro and a pro, that's something that was like a format Roland Alexander came up with. And he had a reason why he came up with that. And we don't know what the reason is for why he came up with that. But usually around the semi-pro time, you can put somebody in the ring, battle royal, squash match, whatever. Then there's the pro where it's like, okay, you can make your debut and you can start wrestling on our cards. And then they graduate, and then they become a graduate, and you go, okay, now you can just go do whatever you want to do. You don't have to run it. You can run it by me if you want, which is a smart move, but you don't have to run it by me. Just get the fuck out there and do it. So it's pretty much once, and a lot of people don't realize that format and they don't get it at the school. If you come in there for the beginner's course, once I've taught you the beginner's course, the ropes, the corners, the bumps, the progressions, how to lock up, how to do all these things and stuff like that. Once I've taught you how to wrestle up here, down there, and all that, go over the top, once I've taught you that stuff, which should take about 3 or 4 months to see it and have it done a couple times, you're good to go. Not good to go wrestle. Now we move you on and we go, okay, his basics and fundamentals are good. Now we can put him in there with one of our guys that come on a regular basis who's been doing it a while, and they become a sparring partner per se for that guy. And that guy then coaches and teaches them, or they get in the ring with us because we know that they're not a sack of shit anymore. So you're just, there is a beginner's portion of this, but once you get through that beginner's portion, you're ready to go, man. And if you have a staff of guys that are experienced and have been around and got 100 matches or more, now you just throw them to them and you say, okay, move on to this class. Now bring me some more people that don't know shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's what the beginner's class is. It's not like, okay, you've done beginners. Now we're going to send you over to the advanced beginners portion, and it will be a different time in a place. Nah, once they go through beginners, get them in there with some experienced guys at practice and let them fuck up.
Right. So getting back to the topic that we kind of started with, which is uh, trying to get yourself in places that you are not the best guy, right? That you're going to go there and you're going to get pushed by other guys. Talk about how important that is. We talked about all the beginner stuff, and I don't want to say we got off topic because I think all the stuff is important, but I think talk about how important it is. Obviously you're going to go from that beginner first couple matches, first year or two in the business where you're going and working at other promotions. And I just I constantly wonder, people are going to promotions where they're the best guy, right? You're going somewhere, and I don't know if it's an ego thing, like you want to feel like you're in the locker room and you're going to be the guy that that everyone looks at and goes, oh, that guy's having great matches, right? But in reality, you're not having good matches. You're just having the best match at a terrible show, right? So
Yeah.
how important is it to go from that, right? And I would look at that as the acceptable way to go about doing that is you're going to have the guys that are coming and wrestling you to get better, right? You're elevating other guys as the best guy on the card. So how do you go from that to trying to go to those shows where now there's a bunch of guys that are either on your level or better than you, and you're going to go in and you're going to be the guy kind of, we've talked about this whole uh, evolution of, first you're listening, then you're working with people that are on your same level, and then you're the teacher, right? We talked about that whole evolution. But as you're in that middle ground, uh, at what point do you, I mean, obviously it's super important that you look around and you realistically look and go, okay, these guys are not pushing me to be better, right? They're looking at me as the best guy. And how that maybe is just, ego getting at you, and you going, you know what, this is my comfort zone, right? Being the best guy in the room, and then have everyone patting me on the back, telling me how good my match is. In reality, when you watch it back, you go, yeah, that match wasn't very good. It just was the best one on the card.
We're actually, as NorCal as a whole, we're actually doing a pretty good job of what the trainers are supposed to be doing. And what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about the level of the training, but, I've seen at some of those matinee shows, Ugly's getting in the ring with his kid and wrestling his young students. And I see Samurai on the matinee show wrestling his young students, and Scoot on there wrestling his young students. And when I've been down there, I'm working with Dickie, I'm working with Preston Price, and I'm consistently talking to a Travis Alexander, and I've seen a lot of the coaches wrestling the younger students. So that's what we're talking about here. That is the first quality experience that you're going to get as a coach. You want to get in there with these young guys. Like, that's what I want. I'm not worried about wrestling the higher guys on the card anymore. I want to wrestle my own guys. I want to wrestle your guys. I want to wrestle the SPW guy. I want to wrestle all the guys out there. And when you talk about getting to a bigger level, I mean, that's kind of what, not kind of, but that's what they're doing right now. Like Jason Xavier and Illumide and those guys, when they go to a West Coast Pro, because that style, we always see like Illumide pop up on AEW, right? And a lot of the indie talent, that's where they're going to fit in the best with their style, is an AEW style. So a West Coast Pro brings in a lot of guys from AEW in Japan and stuff like that. So there's that right there. So when you want to go up to a higher level in that style of performance, that's a place you go. And back in the day, when you wanted to go to a higher level on a card, you went to All Pro Wrestling. We were talking about it the other day. Marcus Mack had Cody Rhodes and Sean Spears. And I mean, you could just look on that card when Mack was running it, all those, during the Cow Palace era. And God, man, like, he was integrating top talent in NorCal that was coming up with the top talent, which are the top guys in pro wrestling right now. You know what I mean? So you have to realize that it's not, we talked about it before, and I'll say it right now. Quality over quantity. And we say, why can't you have both? And you can have both. But it does come down to, is this promoter, does he have a vision? Because I talked to some guys. I was talking to Surza. You were standing right there at your show, and I was talking to him about some stuff coming up in our shows and the way we're doing things. And the first thing he said to me was, he's like, all right, I see. And that's what you're looking at, is you're looking for when these young guys look at you when you're talking to them and go, okay, I see it. I see what you're talking about. I can see this vision. And that's a vision that happens when you're in the ring too. And that's kind of what we were doing when we were leading up to that subject. It might have seemed like we got off subject, but it wasn't, because we're just basically giving them an online training course on here on what you do need to work on. Because it's basics and fundamentals. That's what we're showing these guys. So it's our job as the coach to show them the basics and fundamentals and have them do it so they know how to do all this simple shit. That's what you're doing when you're training them. You're showing them this, because I can't show you a moonsault. Excuse me. I can't show you a frog splash. I can show you a high school boy bump, but I can't simulate what happens when Big Paul puts his hand around your throat and you jump up in the air, because you're never going to take a high school boy bump on your own as big a high school boy bump as you can give them on a choke slam. You know?
Right. So who are those guys right now that you think are in that category? You know, you talked about Mac. I think that's a great point. He's bringing in these guys that are at a higher level, right? That are the top indie guys, and he's bringing them in to work with the guys that, you know, he's trying to elevate in his promotion. So, you know, you talk about Illumine. You know, what type of guys should he be wrestling right now to get him to the next level? You know, so the guy that was on the podcast the other night was asking me about, you know, who do I think, like, who's the next guy that's going to go? You know, who's going to get signed next? And, you know, Illumine pops into my head immediately, just because, you know, the presence that he has, the body that he has, athleticism. You think of you know, so many things that in the package that he has, but how does he go from where he's at right now to elevating a little bit more to get to the level where now he can make a full-time living pro wrestling? You know, what type of things have to happen for that to happen for him?
Well, Marcus Mack, man, I will give him credit. He is one of the main reasons that a lot of this NorCal talent got seen, got looked at in WWE, got jobs. He gave a platform, man. He gave a platform. He gave that experience, that exposure, and that money, man. He gave the perfect booking to these guys on a consistent basis. Big crowd, you know. The footage was put places and it was quality. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't running like out of control storylines, but they were just, the wrestling was, so it was a whole night of good work and good wrestling. So for an Illumine, it's too bad that Marcus and APW aren't running anymore, because that would have been the perfect fit for him. Like, when I look at him in SPW, I go, well, they're bringing in John Morrison, Johnny Nitro, whatever his name is right now. That's somebody he needs to be working. Tim Thatcher is somebody he needs to be working. The WWE ID guys are bringing in. He should be running through those guys. I don't know what the deal is with it or anything, so I don't know the logistics of that, but Illumine should be wrestling the top guys that you bring in. You know what I mean? He should be wrestling Boyce LeGrands, Prime Times, Big Pauls. He should be wrestling Rick Luxuries. He should be wrestling Luster the Legends and Chupacabras and Big Uglies. Whoever is the best guy on these programs, these companies, he should be wrestling those guys. And he should be wrestling right now with guys that can teach him as a baby face. Like, you know, I'm not saying I haven't seen much of his heel work. I don't know, you know. But as a baby face, there's a lot of money for him to make as a baby face. So he needs a lot of opportunities where veteran guys are going to stick it to him and call the match for him and build the heat for him, so he can do all that big stuff that he does at the end to wow the fans. And it's the difference between AEW and WWE. So what I mean by that is, in AEW, Will Ospreay, let's just take Ospreay for, you know, just a quick example. He books his own stuff. He has his own freedom in this company. And that dude's amazing, right? Like, I'm not going to do nothing that guy does. I watch him and I'm just like, damn it, I can't do that. But he's got so much freedom to do it all. There's no producer. There's nobody there to go, hey, don't do that. You don't need to do this. You can do what you want to do, but do it at this time. So a lot of these guys, they need to be produced. You know what I mean? Agented, or whatever booked, whatever it's called. All these things could mean the same thing or have so many differences. We here are just 5 seconds away from the call here. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes remain in this podcast. 5 minutes remain in this podcast. But that's just it, man. It's the young guys. I see it a lot. It's there. The guys are in the locker room. They're going to get better. But the thing too is there's so many young guys. There's so much young talent. This process is going to take a while. It took a while with us. So I'm not too hard on some of these young guys that are out there doing the right thing at the right places. You know what I mean? I wrestled Preston Price from SPW at your show. And I told him, I said, hey, you got to sell for me. Because every time I'm knocking you down, I turn around and you're back up to your feet and you're taller than me. So you're standing over the top of me. So you got to sell more. And then I watched him the last show a month later. And you know what he was doing? He was selling for Scotty Ringer.
Right.
Selling for him on everything. And that's one thing I told him in the locker room. He asked what I thought. And I said, dude, your punches look fake. Let's work on those. Hang the string down, hit it 100 times a day, whatever. But that's on you. But you sold this time. You sold for the guy out there. You made him look good. So like that's like less than 30 days after I told him what he did wrong in our match and what he needed to work on. And he comes back a month later at your show and does it flawlessly. So, okay, where are we going to see Preston in another month? Well, next month, his punches might look like they're knocking your head off because I put my jaw in the locker room and I'll just hit me, straight through, bring it back, hit me straight through. He's like, you want me to punch you in the jaw? I'm like, yeah, come on, hurry up, do it. Like, you got to get this, you got to get over this. You got to hit me in the jaw real quick and get over the feeling of it. You got to do it. And that kid, to be honest with you, 2 years from now, that's going to be a kid that we're going to be like, oh, I remember helping that kid in the locker room. And he's going to be off somewhere else. So that's all we got to do is we say it in the ring all the time. Just be patient. There's so much talent out there right now. We just kind of got to just go, okay, be patient, help them out, and we'll see them develop in a 5-year span, just like we developed.
Right. And I can't impress enough how important what you just said is about you go to somebody and you say, hey, what'd you think of my match? And they give you a laundry list of things, right? When you first start, you get a laundry list of stuff. What can I work on? Pick one of those things. For Preston, it was selling, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to pick that thing and I'm going to be better at it the next time you see me, right? So I think that's what we really need is we need the young guys to come up and ask those questions. What can I do? And I've heard Ugly say it a bunch of times. Don't do it because you think it's the question you're supposed to ask. Do it because you're looking for information and you're going to take that information and you're going to fix one of those issues that were wrong, right? So whether it's selling, whether it's not Supermaning up or whatever the thing is, your punches suck, your kicks suck, whatever. That sequence didn't make sense. Whatever the thing is that these people are giving you feedback on, take that to heart and try to fix that. And then the next time you see that person, hopefully whatever they talk to you about is fixed and they can say, hey man, I noticed that thing that I talked to you about, you fixed it, right? Just like, he had that same conversation with me about selling, right? And I was just like, well, that's all you need to do, man. You need to take the advice from people and you need to just pick one thing out of there and go, I'm going to fix that for the next time that person sees me. So I don't know. I think it's easy, but it's hard, obviously.
Well, in closing real quick, that's usually when I give somebody some advice, I'm either going to give them advice on listening, whether it be the audience or the guy talking to them in the ring, selling, or bumping, feeding faster. I'm not worried about the other shit. I'm really not. Like, just sell, listen to the audience, bump and feed. If there's some little stuff along the way, if I catch something that you're doing that I liked or I didn't like, I'll say, hey, why'd you do this? But I don't want to get their brain scatterbrained. I don't want to get a scatterbrain guy all over the place going, You critique me from the time I locked up to the time my finish happened. No, stop them here. If it looked like shit, let's go. Paul, we got 8 seconds. Is there anything you need to add? Zack, primetime Reeb, Wrecking Ball, Paul, Isadora. We're going over.